You may recall that last year, Doesn't Test Games did this bizarre SeAsOn of ReVeALs thing for TSW. Personally, I thought it was a bit of a farce, since most of the announcements were A, overhyped, and B, updates for add-ons that we already knew were coming. And then there was all that hullabaloo about the so-called Grand Reveal. The silly sods from Chatham have done SeAsOn of ReVeALs again in 2025, for whatever reason, and I thought I'd go over most of what was announced and share my 2 cents on it all. In week 1, 2 new routes were announced, and they're both developed by third parties. Only recently have I noticed the significantly increased presence of third-party add-ons in this game. By comparison, fewer add-ons are being developed by Dovetail themselves. The newly announced routes in question are Rhein-Neosbahn, Duisburg to Mönchengladbach from Folles World, and the Southern Pacific Ore Line's Hayden branch from High Iron Simulations. To be honest, I'm not too keen on the latter because of my general lack of interest in US freight routes, and it doesn't help that HIS has a reputation for tuning out low-quality DLC. Case in point, the Santa Fe on Cajon Pass gameplay pack. HIS are like the American version of Rivet Games, in a sense, so I'm not sure if I can trust them to deliver a quality product in the Hayden branch add-on. Personally, I think Southern Pacific's debut appearance in TSW would be more exciting if it wasn't on a route that's only a measly 20 miles, or 32.1 kilometers, in length. From what I gather, the Hayden branch has a maximum speed limit of only 30 miles per hour. As such, I can't see it appealing to those who prefer faster trains, like me. If this sort of route does interest you, that's alright with me. I'm not here to dictate what routes you should or shouldn't be interested in. As for the German route, it's essentially an extension of the existing Hauptstrecke Rhein-Ruhr, Duisburg to Bochum, which was released in March 2020. Personally, I think HRR is one of the blandest routes in the whole game, and it doesn't help that the route coverage is stupidly short, at only 46 kilometers, or 28 miles. As for motive power, don't quote me on this, but I think it looks like Duisburg to Mönchengladbach is going to include the BR406 ICE 3M and BR425, 2 trains that we've already had before. Twice in the case of the BR406 ICE 3M, and thrice in the case of the BR425. Surely I'm not the only one that's absolutely sick of certain motive power getting recycled and resold over and over again. In other news, it looks like the BR642 from Maintalbahn will have a layer on the Rhein-Neosbahn, and that got me thinking. Is it too much to ask to get a more region-specific livery to suit the North Rhine-Westphalia region? I don't want to see the existing Westfrankenbahn variant on yet another route that's miles away from the Aschaffenburg area. At present, I'm thinking that, if I ever get the Rhein-Neosbahn route for myself, it would not be at launch. Aside from the recycled motive power, I'm not too keen on the route concept, as it doesn't really offer anything that we haven't already seen in previous German routes. It's interesting to note that, Aside from a tiny mention on the route map poster that you might not even notice, the initial launch article for ReVeALs makes no mention of the route length. Turns out that it's only 60 kilometers, or 37.2 miles long. I guess that it's Foles World's first route, and they might not have wanted to do something too ambitious, which is understandable, but on the other hand, TSW is already notorious for an excessive amount of really short routes, so RNB, the next route I'll be discussing, and by extension the Hayden branch, are essentially adding fuel to the fire, if you will. Considering how many big yards are on the Duisburg to Mönchengladbach line, one wonders if, once again, we'll see the issue of completely empty sidings, even with all the layers active, thus repeating the same issue that I've seen on Bremen to Oldenburg, and apparently it's a problem on Stuttgart to Heilbronn as well, although I can't confirm that because I haven't got the route. The first announcement in week 2 caught me by surprise. It's the Medway Valley line from Strood to Tunbridge via Paddock Wood, so it's effectively a 26-mile extension of southeastern high speed that's being sold separately. It's being developed by Firefly Simulations, a third-party studio made up of people whose usernames I recognised from the TSW modding scene. While I haven't ridden on the Strood to Paddock Wood section in real life, I did go through Tunbridge a few times as we were staying in Tunbridge Wells near the end of our UK trip, and caught the train to and from London Charing Cross or London Bridge at least 4 times. According to Dovetail's article, the MVL add-on will also include the Gravesend to Rainham section of southeastern high speed, and quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if the improvements made to that aforementioned section won't be backported to the original SEHS. Wouldn't be the first time that sort of thing has happened, much to my frustration. The main thing that caught my eye was the mention of the Class 375/3 and Class 375/6, which will be included with the add-on. I've essentially been crying out for more variants of the Class 375 for goodness knows how long at this point. And for reference, the 375/3s are 3-car units and the 375/6s are 4-car units, but the latter has dual voltage capabilities for whatever reason. Come to think of it, why did the developers miss another opportunity to add the Class 375/7, 375/8 and Class 466 as well? On the topic of missing southeastern units in TSW, we still haven't got the 465/0 and 465/1 with their Hitachi motors. From memories of driving on the MVL in TS Classic, it's a scenic route with a similarly peaceful environment to East Coastway, and Wateringbury was my favourite station on the line, although its name doesn't roll off the tongue all that well. Even though I railed against the abundance of short routes earlier, part of me is still looking forward to getting the Medway Valley line in TSW. All the remaining announcements in SOR Week 2 were just updates on DLC that we already knew was coming. One of them was Northeast Corridor New York to Stamford, a route add-on that Dovetail are working on, and personally, I have mixed thoughts on it. Although I'm looking forward to seeing and driving the Metro North M8 electric multiple unit, and it's good to see that DTG are including both Grand Central and Penn Station, I am rather annoyed with DTG's decision to cut the route coverage at Stamford and not bother including the new Cannon branch. As it stands, the in-game route will only be 54 miles, or around 86 kilometers, in length. If they weren't going to go all the way to New Haven, like they did on the original TS Classic route, they should have, at the very least, added the new Cannon branch instead. They should have also added the branch from South Norwalk to Danbury, since that would mean you could have better use of a P32 ACDM Genesis or SC42DM Charger, if either locomotive was ever modelled for the game. Come to think of it, the New York to Stamford route would make for a good opportunity to add more Amtrak locomotives, such as the AEM7 and HHP8, or if you want to go back even further, the E60. instead of only seeing the same boring old ACS 64 and Acela Express again. The only update for the Czech route, Liberec to Stará Paka from Vector Simulations, was just a short gameplay showcase video, the same as what was published for Union Workshop's Tadami line in SOR Week 1. When it comes to the two upcoming continental European routes from countries that haven't been in TSW before, I'm more interested in the Portuguese route, even though it's neither of the two lines in particular that I wanted to see in the game. Liberec to Stará Paka will include the České dráhy Class 750 locomotive and Class 843 diesel railcar, and although I find those two somewhat interesting, I know almost nothing about Czech railways, so I don't think I'd be able to do the Liberec to Stará Paka route justice in a review. However, I don't have a problem with people who are looking forward to the Czech route. The first announcement in SOR Week 3 came as a shock, although I should have seen it coming given the Easter egg I recall seeing on Mittenwaldbahn. Speaking of Train Sim Germany, they have announced their next route as being the Neckartalbahn, Heidelberg to Neckarelz. The route is set in 1974, thus beating the Clinchfield Railroad as TSW's oldest route, time period wise, and will include the Deutsche Bundesbahn BR23. But the route coverage is only 53 kilometers, or around 33 miles long. I also noticed a mention of the route being entirely electrified, and this begs the question, why would a steam locomotive still be running under the wires? Thinking back to the Deutsche Bundesbahn BR23, this is a 262 tender engine that I had never heard of before finding out that she was coming to TSW. Given the current poor state of steam locomotives in the game, I hope that TSG can significantly improve the steam simulation. Disappointingly, Dovetail said, in the article on their website, that any stimulations... Wait, did I just say stimulation? Any simulation improvements made for the BR23 and any future steamers will not apply to the existing LMS Stania Jubilee 460, Stania 8F 280, Fowler 4F 060, and LNER Grizzly A3 Pacific, much to my disappointment. With TSG working on steam simulation, I hope to see the improvements passed on to any other third-party developers who might want to model steam locomotives for TSW. The next announcement was one to which I initially reacted with frustration. It's West Coast Main Line Trent Valley from All Aboard Studios, running for 108 miles, or the better part of 174 kilometres, from Milton Keynes to Crewe, so we'll effectively have the entire West Coast Main Line in TSW once this add-on, and JT's Preston to Crewe, is released. When I saw this announcement, the initial response in my head was, do we really need yet another section of the blasted West Coast Main Line in TSW? Why is the WCML getting so much attention when we still have only one section of the East Coast Main Line in the game, and the most boring section of the ECML at that? My frustration over the WCML versus ECML situation aside, I'm a bit wary of the upcoming Trent Valley route based on the disastrous launch of WCML Birmingham to Crewe. I don't think the blame for that fiasco falls entirely at the feet of All Aboard Studios, but rather, it falls primarily at the feet of Dovetail Games because they are the publishers of this content. They are the ones who allowed an outdated build of the route to go out to customers, whether that was intentional or not. As for motive power, I see that the Milton Keynes to Crewe route will include the Class 350/4, which was inexplicably omitted from WCML Birmingham to Crewe, and it will also include the Class 807 Evero. I guess this explains why the Class 807 will not be included in the Class 805 add-on, but this begs the question as to why two very similar, and almost aesthetically identical trains are being sold separately from each other. Incidentally, this situation with the Everose and the Crewe to Milton Keynes route is not the first time I've seen a TSW add-on that only includes a new variant of a train that we already have in the game, along with a new train that's not much different from ones that we already have. The Riviera line is another example of this kind of situation. Just looking back to the route map for a moment, I see it's going to link up with other routes via the route hopping feature and... Wait a minute. Why the hell is the Northampton Loop not included? As for the Lisboa to Setúbal route, about which we've already known for a fair while at this point, there were no major updates outside of a short gameplay showcase video. On first impression, I'm not a fan of how the 3500 series EMU looks in the Furtagus livery, and I would be lying if I said I was happy with the route coverage. It's only 54 kilometers, or 33.5 miles, in length, although it will at least have two saving graces in the form of the whacking great big 25 de Abril bridge in Lisboa, and, of course, it's setting in a country that hasn't been in TSW before. I just wish that Virtua VR 360 were doing the Cascais line instead of the line to Setúbal. Just Trains have announced a new route, even though WCML Preston to Crewe hasn't been released yet. The route in question is the Cumbrian coast, Carlisle to Whitehaven, and we don't have much to go on at present, but we do know that it's going to be only 40 miles long. I refer you back to what I said about short routes earlier, and that it will include the Class 108 diesel multiple unit. Assuming the Class 104 and Peak Forest expansion pack have been cancelled, which would be really unfortunate if true, then the Class 108 will be the second first-generation DMU in Train Sim World after the Class 101, which has been in the game for 7 years at this point. The announcement of Carlisle to Whitehaven caught me by surprise, since I've ridden on parts of the route in real life, but only between Dalston and Carlisle, as we were staying in Dalston on the night of April 22, and next morning, I went on a Class 156 to see the other trains in Carlisle. Before moving on to the conclusion, I have a question for Just Trains. Why are you only building the route coverage as far south as Whitehaven instead of going all the way to Carnforth, or at the very least, Barrow-in-Furness? So those were my thoughts on the DLC announcements from 2025's season of ReVeALs. In summary, I found the announcements to be a mix of mediocrity, outright disappointment, and, in the case of the Medway Valley line, Carlisle to Whitehaven and Neckartalbahn, genuine excitement. As an aside, I noticed that we still haven't got any updates on that Class 171 and Class 377-3 pack for East Coastway that Rivet Games are making. I wonder why. In any case, there's one more thing I wanted to discuss before signing off. Dovetail had the balls to use "Expect the Unexpected" as their slogan for TSW 6, but I believe that slogan is becoming increasingly on the nose as time goes on. Whilst it can apply to certain situations, like the previously mentioned German steam locomotive and Carlisle to Whitehaven route, those cases are few and far between. I'm not sure how Dovetail can encourage potential customers to expect the unexpected when we see, clear as day, that nothing is changing where the business model is concerned. If you stuck around to the end of the video, you win a fictional mouse that lost her fruit in the Twin Cities. It's Minneapolis,